Hello, once again, one and all, and welcome back to Conquest of Azeroth. We're taking a look at Necromancer. The level 30 video from Necromancer, the level 20 video I have will probably be taken down or put into a vault playlist of old, not current content. Necromancer has three different playstyles: undead minions, diseases like your Blight and Harvest Plague, or straight frost damage in Lich Frost and a couple other abilities depending on the tree you're running with. Your minions, your pets, you have two different kinds. You have your raise abilities, or you have your animates. Animates give you a temporary minion or set of minions, while raises creates permanent little minions like ghouls, abominations, crypt fiends, or skeletal rogues, which are the 3-4 you'll be using at level 30. You have a slew of buffs in your Chill the Tomb, Razor Ice, Foul Mandate, and then you have two wards: Fetid Ward, which causes you to self-heal for the day, which causes you to deal for 30% of the damage you deal, but that healing is split between you and your pets, your minions. But your healing received is also increased by 10%. Or you go with Bone Ward, which increases your stamina and armor, and are ranged and melee attacks against you have a chance, and your minions have a chance to. Well, no, they do slow down or weaken enemy attack power. Sorry. You can command your pets, because while you can't order them around normally, you can use your Undead Assault, Pacify, or Protect to basically set their AI to either be aggressive, defensive, or just to ignore things. If you have Pacify on, you can't use any of your command abilities or your Grave March ability. You normally want to keep it on Assault so your group pets can keep up with you and chase down targets. Command has a different effect depending on which undead you have. Plague Fiend shoots out a barrage of frosty barbs. Abomination basically farts. The ghouls explode, dealing damage around them and healing you for each ghoul that explodes. And your skeletal rogue will basically jump to an enemy and attack a bunch of times, or it's a guaranteed max amount of attacks, which is 5 if they're below 35% health. All in all, these are really strong, and definitely making use of these is great. You have Transfer Life, which allows you to use your own life to heal your minions. You have Runic Harvest, which I'm not sure if it takes. Yeah, it drains their mana to give you runic power. Which, honestly, I think that should be an increased amount drained for each minion you have up for how long you've got to channel that crap in the cooldown. You have a Unholy Frenzy, which for 15 seconds increases their attack speed and movement speed. This is really good to use. In the spec class talent tree, you can get the Raise Abomination, which so you can use it across all specs. Fetid Ward is something you can get across all specs. And Glacial Tap, again, is another thing you can get your hands on, which is really good, but it's more useful for the other two specs. Command Hook is specifically for your abominations, allowing you to hook enemies and drag them to you, and basically stopping them from moving for 2 seconds. This is kind of nice in PvP. Hulking Hordes, Lich Essence, Ice Crown Scriptures. Again, this is actually something you would probably want to take, as are these two. Like, all three of these are actually pretty good. Vampiric Aura, while you're below half health, your undead minions now heal you for 10% of their damage dealt, which pairs well with the ghouls, which are already healing you for the damage they deal. Living Dead reduces the mana cost of Lich Frost and Crypt Swarm. And Blight, if it lasts its full duration, now refunds half its mana cost, which is okay, but the problem is it's a 20-second duration, so normally by the time that's done, either the enemy's dead or you're dead. Frozen Reliquary, these I actually didn't realize what they were. I figured they were like a soul well from a warlock. Instead, basically you can use corpse dust to make your own potions. There's a health version, the Bone Reliquary, or there's the mana version, the Frozen Reliquary. Each one has a 1 minute cooldown, but it returns either 30% of your max health or no, correction, 30% of your missing health or your 30% of your missing mana. That should be maximum, not missing. I hate using the returns a percentage of your missing mana. That's really useless unless you're like really low mana. And even then, it's kind of bad. Especially with a 1 minute cooldown. You have Life for Power. This is not as good as it sounds. You absorb 20% of the healing taken and gain a shield for the amount absorbed. This means any single instance of healing, not collective healing. I'm dumb and I didn't read this properly. So this is useless. Unless you have a dedicated healer, or you're in a dungeon, and even in dungeons, it's, again, your healer's going to be keeping you alive. So, why would you be taking taking this and absorb removes 20% of the healing? It's kind of pointless. Bone ties siphons life from your minions, sacrificing 40% of their health to grant you an absorbed shield equal to half the health taken or stolen for 20 seconds. Is usable while stunned. Really good when you have a bunch of minions or you have multiple really tanky minions. Ner'zhul's Blessing increases your runic power because, yes, this class uses mana and runic power, which is kind of nice. And the last line up here, you have Phylactery, which basically you create a little thing that can be destroyed. And when you're dead, or when you're almost dead, you become a shade, basically making you immune to all attack and spells, but you cannot attack or cast spells. Now, I don't know how long you have to reach your Phylactery once you die, but if you don't die, if you get there in time, you get about half your health back. So this is kind of nice to, evade death once in a while. I'm not sure if this would work with flag carriers. I haven't tested that yet. And then over here, you have a really nice ability, Death's Due. Force a target to accept the reality of death. Basically, what this does, it removes shields and invulnerabilities. And oh my god, with the amount of shields classes can get in PvP, this is nice. And especially in Scarlet Monster, this is really freaking nice to have. All in all, the leveling for the class is fun. Having a pet having your undead makes, questing easy. The AI for them is a little jank. They get stuck on weird geometry and shit, but it is what it is. Taking a look at the first spec of animation. Animation is all about your pets. The first ability you get your hands on is Animate Skeletal Archer, which summons 3 Skeletal Archers for 20 seconds, or just shy of 20 seconds, to attack your enemies. This is really good. They have a really good range and really good damage. The next ability you get is your Raise Ghouls. Ghouls, when they auto-attack, heal you for a small amount of health, but when you command them, they explode, dealing AoE damage, and heal you for an even larger amount of health. And this healing compounds when you have multiple, so this is instances based off of each one. So having 5, I can have up to 5 minions right now. 5 auto attacks from 5 ghouls, that's 50 health. That's about 100 health for every time each one of them attacks. And that's 500 health back if I use command. It's about a third of my health. And considering you can spam command very easy, you're really tanky, as you can see in my the video. The fucking clip I'm playing. The next talent skill abilities you can get is a dual choice between Animate Bone Wraith and Animate Tomb King. Bone Wraith summons basically Lord Morgwar from ICC to Beyblade his way into groups of enemies, as well as auto-attacking. Does pretty good damage, more useful for AoE. The other option is Tomb King. While Tomb King is active, even while it's attacking, all of your undead minions now deal 10% of their damage dealt as additional plague damage. So more just flat damage. From there, you have no other abilities. The class passives are Summoning Adept at level 10, which gives you an extra life force. And given you get one free at level 10, anyways, you have a max of 4 at level 10, which means you can have 4 minions up at a time. 4 ghouls, 2 crypt fiends, anything goes. Summoning Expert, level 20 is Deadly Bond. Casting command spells now has a 30% chance to make the next cast within 6 seconds free of cost. This is a really big bonus to your DPS because you could spam this. If you get those 30% procs to chain together and you've got a full bar of runic influence, you can nuke things in PvP and dungeons. It's really fun to watch, as you can see in the clip. At level 30, you get another life force, and as well as increasing your minion stamina by 10%. Outside of that, let's get into the spec passives. You got Bone King, Grave Robber, Sepulchre Might, Summoning Prodigy, Forbidden Technique, Scourge Disciple, Runic Animation, Summoner, Ghoul Mastery, Skeletal Artillery, and Putrefier. All in all, animation is really good in PvP and PvE. Having 2 Crypt Fiends is superior damage. Getting multiple procs of their command ability, you will nuke people in moments. And if you want to be more survivable, having 4 or 5 ghouls up at a time, unless you get stunned, you're really, really unkillable. And fighting another Necromancer with 5 ghouls is kind of a it's a dirt fight, because at this point you're just trying to out survive each other's mana and runic power. It's really dumb to watch. Skeletal Archers is good to drop whatever, as is Animate Tomb King. Abominations are good in deep PV in dungeons because they do a lot of AoE damage. Pairing an Abomination with a ghoul or just having max ghouls, great way to buff out your AoE damage, and then swapping to 2 Crypt Fiends for the straight single target damage. Again, really good. Skeletal Rogues also really good if you want to use it again, if you want to focus on dealing with casters, because they apply a poison on hit that reduces the caster's casting time by 10%, and it stacks up to 3 times. Again, really, really useful. How you want to run this class? Either spam Lich Frost or Crypt Swarm. Spam it, get your freaking rage up as high as you can, and then spam the ever-loving shit out of Command Undead. Command Undead is where most of your damage is going to come from. Use your Animate Skeletal Archers off cooldown. Use your Ancestral Animate Tomb King, whenever it pops up, and go to town. If you're using Crypt Fiends, you want to sit behind your front line and just wail on healers or wail on frickin' anything that gets too close. Pop Ghoulify to, CC them for 8 seconds and get away. If you're using ghouls, you can stand in the middle of a team fight because these things deal AoE damage and will heal you for their damage dealt. You become damn near unkillable unless you get stunned. Like, the only way you'll die with those things up is if you get stunned and can't use your command spell. Pairing them with Unholy Frenzy really helps with the healing, and using Blood Fury as well helps with the putting out more damage if you make an Orc Necromancer. From there, we're going to take a look at Rime. Rime is all about your frost damage. It's very powerful. It's strong, but it's slow. So you won't top DPS meters, but you will definitely deal very large amounts of damage slowly. Basically, the first ability you're going to get your hands on is Ice Barrage. This hits an enemy for frost damage, and it's a very short dot. At the end of its duration, it freezes an enemy in place for 4 seconds, which you want to then immediately follow up with a Glacial Impact. This calls down a high damage boulder on top of an enemy. Sadly, it's not AoE, and I don't know if there's any talents later in the tree after level 30 that make it AoE, because I think that would be a really nice change. Outside of this, You have Heart Chill, which is an interrupt. And if you successfully interrupt someone, you steal 80% of their movement speed. No, you reduce their movement speed and haste by 80% for 3 seconds. Ouch. That's a killer in PvP. But those are the only two abilities you get at level 30, which is just a little sag. You can get down to Skeletal Mage. Raise Skeletal Mage is a new minion you can get that costs 2 life force. When you command, it unleashes an icy attack at the enemy, dealing a chunk of damage to the enemy, and then as well as dealing damage to enemies around said target within 6 yards. So it's a little bit of an AoE. It's really nice. Sadly, at level 30, you can only have one. Your passives for the spec are at level 10, casting any spell now has a 25% chance to give you Tundra Warriors, which increases the critical strike chance of your minions, which stacks up to 3 times. At level 20, you have Ice Mastery. Your spell power is increased by 30% of your intellect, so you basically get to double dip on intellect for spell power, which is nice. And then at level 30, increases your critical damage against frozen targets by double. It basically doubles your damage against frozen targets if you crit, which again is nice. And you definitely want to focus with crit with this spec. The talents in the talent tree are Refreshing Chill, a choice between Frigid Winds and Piercing Icicles, Bone Legion, Curse of the Lich, Runic Reservoir, Hoarfrost Hands, a choice between Frigid Death and Freeze Dry, sorry. I don't know if I picked me up. Necrotic Chains or Nerzul's Blessing, Giant Bones, Glacier Lord, or Ice Crown. And if you go down and rush for the final lineup here of these 3 talents, it's Domination of Frost, Frozen Power, Frigid Power. Rime does a lot of damage slowly. It requires a little bit of setup time, but when it does hit, it hits hard. So your DPS may not be high, but your damage done will be respectable. In PvP, you're basically a nuke. You can quickly take out opponents. As long as they don't die before you hit them, and this also kind of becomes a problem because if they manage to get to you, you have no recourse to escape them. Even if you're using your minions, you really don't have much of a way to escape them, which is what it is. In dungeons, you're really good at dealing a lot of damage to the boss, which is pretty much the long and the short of what this spec does. It's fun, a little slow for my liking, but again, I guess that's thematic for the spec. It's a frost magic spec. What do you expect? Moving on from Rime, we're finally going to take a look at Death. Death is the dot spec. The first ability you get your hands on is Flesh to Worms. It's a short duration dot damage over time that generates runic power every 3 seconds. The next ability you will get your hands on is Plague of Undeath. Disease an enemy, dealing a chunk of plague damage every 2.5 seconds, and it reduces the holy healing received by almost half for 20 seconds. And if it's dispelled, it does a chunk of damage and stuns an enemy. This is kind of nice in both PvE and PvP. It's a lot of damage. Now, the last ability you can get your hands on in the before by level 30 is Virulency. This is actually really nice. Basically, what this does is it stores your dots on an enemy. You basically store a copy of all the dots on an enemy, and you can basically copy them onto a new target. So you can't hit multiple targets, but you can, for now at level 30, hit 2 targets with all of your buffs if you build up on one, allowing you to double dip the damage. This is nice, and it's fun. It's really useless against bosses, but in PvP, it's really useful. Your level 10 passive is Crypt Plague, which it means your Crypt Swarm applies a stack of Crypt Plague, and your Lich Frost applies 2 stacks. And it's very simply a very low damage dot that lasts for 10 seconds. And it stacks up to 10 times, but additional applications do not refresh the duration, which is a little sad. Level 20 is Plague Science. Your diseases and Crypt Swarms now deal double damage to enemies below 20%. Really good. So this spec is really good at finishing off low health targets. And then at level 30, you get Rotting Flesh, which applying Crypt Plague now also applies Rotting Flesh to your minions, increasing the damage dealt by 2% for 5 seconds. Applies a 2% damage buff for 5 seconds. And it stacks the same number of stacks that it basically. Jesus, that wording is weird. Basically, whenever you apply a stack of Crypt Plague, you apply a stack of Rotting Flesh. I don't know what the max stack is. I'm going to assume it's the same one as the same max stacks as Crypt Plague, so only 10. That would make sense instead of in the implication that it stacks infinitely. I'm sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained today. The spec tree passives are Cycle of Death, Master of Death, Rotting Flesh, Swarmer, Damnation, Creeping Crypt, Dark Harvester, Expunge, and a choice between Foul Contagion or Necrosis. Death deals a lot of damage. It is a dot spec, so it takes a couple seconds to build up to your max damage potential. But once you get up there, and if you're using, 3 undead rogues, a crypt fiend and an undead rogue, 3 ghouls, a frickin' abomination, and you're using your command spell at the same time, you can deal quite a bit of single target damage. You have no AoE, none outside of your minions. So all of your damage, especially from the tree, is focused solely on the single target at the moment. But when you do that single target damage, you do it very nicely. You may not be the top of the DPS charts, but you'll sit pretty with that damage number. It suffers from massive mana issues. You run out of mana very, very, very quickly. And there's a distinct lack, from what I have looked at in the spec tree, of abilities that give you mana back. The only one I have seen is either Overwhelming Force or Tears of Lordaeron over in the Necromancer tree, which is a little annoying that that's the only option we have. Because it's either, I don't know if I talked about this, so I'm going to put these up here, I guess. Damage dealt by your undead minions now has a 5% chance to restore 2 runic power and 2% of your max mana. Or dealing direct critical strike regenerates 3% of your max mana and 9% of your max runic power, while periodic critical strikes regenerate 1% of your max mana. Both of these kind of suck. So at level 30, you definitely have mana issues. So you'll definitely want to carry mana pots, make use of Frozen Reliquary, and have drinks on hand at all times because being sucks. All in all, I like the class. At level, it definitely feels stronger than it did in level 20 in the beta, and I had a blast playing it. There have been changes to it recently that they have made across the board, across a lot of classes, that I'm excited to try out for some of the classes I've already played. But for the time being, Necromancer feels good. Your deal in PvP, you deal a lot of damage. You're squishy if you're gotten to, but if they don't focus you down and ignore your minions will run a train on the enemy. If your animation, you will dot the hell out of that to at least 2 enemies at a time with death, or you will quite literally just repeatedly lock people down in place for a short amount of time and then drop giant hail on their heads, dealing a chunk of damage. So it's really fun. I'm having the most fun with animation, but that's just me. Having a undead horde of groupies is entertaining to say the least. And watching them scurry off towards an enemy that's trying desperately to flee from me is always good for a laugh. But with all that said, I hope you have enjoyed, and if you have, I would be pleased if you. Jesus, I'm sorry, my brain is fried. I completely forgot how I normally do this. I would be. If you've enjoyed, please feel free to leave a like or a comment below. Like lets me know you all want to see more of this, and a comment tells me with the algorithm. Also enjoy responding to my comments so long as they are positive, and at the very least, if they are negative, they are constructively negative and not just someone being a dick. I've been getting a couple of those in the last few videos and popping up in older videos now. I'm not upset. I am not displeased. I am just sitting here staring at those comments like, why? Why would you waste the energy to be mean like that? What do you get out of it? But with all that said, I hope to see you all again in the next one. Bye bye.